Hi, Todd VanDenburg here with VanDenburg Capital Management and another Uncommon Sense update. So many things to talk about today, but if I talked about all of them, I literally this would be like a half an hour update and nobody's going to watch for a half an hour. So I've decided to pick one thing, and then if you watch all the way to the end, I'll share a couple of personal items that are pretty special for me and for my wife. So hold on till the end and I'll share those things with you. But that's not what I wanted to talk about today primarily. Today, it's about the debt crisis. Ooh, sounds so scary, doesn't it, when the media refers to it as the debt crisis? So for those that aren't aware, the Congress passes what's called the debt ceiling. And it's supposed to be the maximum amount of money that the US government can borrow. And every time that they raise the debt ceiling to a new limit, the government just keeps borrowing more money, spending more than it brings in, and then we hit up against the debt ceiling, and then the media starts talking about the debt crisis, and Congress, starts beating each other up about, if you don't raise the debt ceiling, you're gonna, the U.S. will default on its debt, all kinds of fear mongering. So I want to put some sanity to this discussion with just a couple of key items. So the first thing is, we absolutely are coming up against the debt ceiling. The U.S. government right now is about $31.5 trillion in debt. That's just a shocking number. I've said this before, but when I was on active duty in the Army in the early 80s, I can vividly remember, hearing on the news that the national debt had achieved $1 trillion and thinking as a young 18, 19-year-old, how could the government ever need to borrow more money than that, right? Well, $30 trillion later, here we are. So, but I digress. All right, so they set this limit called the debt ceiling limit, and then Congress just keeps passing new budgets that cause us to borrow even more money, and we hit up against the debt ceiling. And the latest media discussion on this is that when they refer to hitting the debt ceiling and Congress not having the Treasury not having the ability to borrow more money, that we're going to then default on our debt. And that's where I want to focus today. So here's a couple of quick charts. The first chart shows what total federal tax revenue has been for the last year. And it actually shows tax revenue over time, but when you look at the far right of the chart, you see that tax revenues are sitting at about $5 trillion. That's an amazing amount of money. The federal government pulls in $5 trillion a year. So, in order to default on the national debt, what that means is that you don't make the interest payments. Okay, so it's important to know how much are the interest payments. And I'm going to show you another chart here, and it shows what the interest on our debt has done since 2000. And back in 2000, the interest payment on the debt, I think, was like $300 billion a year. It's gone up substantially, no doubt. But right now, I think in the last year, the total interest on the national debt was about $928 billion. Again, huge numbers, but let's put this into perspective. Total federal revenue, interest on the debt. So $5 trillion of revenue, $1 trillion to make our interest payments. That leaves $4 trillion for the government to spend on other things. So I'll just ask you a question. If you found it in any given year that you had run up against your debt limit, nobody was going to lend you any more money, and you were bringing in $5,000 a month of revenue, and you had a mortgage payment of $1,000 a month, and you had $5,000 more of bills, which of those bills are you not going to pay first? Will it really be your mortgage payment? Are you really going to make yourself homeless, or are you going to not pay your credit card bill? Are you going to put off, some other bill, your cell phone bill, your cable bill? Yeah, there's tons of other bills, and that's where the federal government is right now. If they hit up against the debt ceiling, that doesn't mean that they default on the debt. And as a matter of fact, to digress again, there's also talk about what's called the 14th Amendment. And what the 14th Amendment says is that basically our national debt cannot be questioned. It's an absolute guarantee. You cannot question it. So it's debatable. This has never been challenged. Nobody's ever tried to default on the debt, but it's questionable that if the Treasury is their feet are held to the fire, can they really, of all the bills that need to be paid, can they really not pay the interest first? And I would argue no. I'm not an attorney. I don't give legal advice. Nothing I say should be construed as legal advice. Please contact a qualified attorney before taking any action. But I do know how to read. And it seems pretty clear that the government can't default on the debt. Now, some who want the government to borrow more money would say, well, then that means that the debt ceiling limit has to be raised. And if the president wants, he'll invoke the 14th Amendment and just through executive order raise the debt ceiling. I think that would likely be challenged in court because, again, the only action that causes the dollar, the Treasury to be in question, our currency to be in question, is if they defaulted on the debt, not if they didn't pay some bills for other government programs that have nothing to do with our dollar or the national debt. So I just want to be clear here is that I'm not arguing about should we raise the national debt, should we not, debt ceiling limit, should we not, who's right, who's wrong, is it the Republicans, the Democrats, who's holding the moral high ground, which arguably neither side are holding a moral high ground. Again, I'm digressing a lot today. So what I am saying is that it's really, really, really unlikely that the first action that the government takes, should we hit the debt limit here in a few weeks, is, well, we're just not going to pay interest on our debt. I just think that would be challenged almost instantaneously because there is plenty of money coming into the Treasury every month to pay the national debt. The government has choices. And just like you make every day, when you make choices about which bills get paid first, the federal government has to make those choices too. There is no situation where the federal government doesn't have enough money to make the interest payment on the national debt. I can't emphasize that enough. So anytime that you hear in the media this, fear mongering of, if Congress doesn't raise the debt ceiling, that we're going to default on our debt, they're conflating two different things that aren't necessarily true. And when the Democrats beat up on the Republicans because the House Republicans have passed a debt ceiling limit increase that also has some spending reductions in it, and the Democrats are like, we don't want the spending cuts to be merged with the debt ceiling limit increase. Again, neither side is right or wrong. They're just negotiating. But in the end, the Treasury doesn't have, I don't believe, the option to not make the interest payments on the debt. And they have the ability to do that without borrowing another dollar. And we're a long way off from having the interest on the debt get anywhere near total federal revenues. So don't let the fear mongering in the media cause you to start doing things like, well, gee, if they default on the debt, what does that do to the dollar? So, geez, I should get my money out of the banks because if people are concerned about the value of the dollar, then they're going to take their money out of the banks and go buy a commodity, gold, silver, whatever. And then the banks are going to go down like Silicon Valley Bank did and First Republic. And, it's going to just cause this domino effect of the U.S. economy. And, oh my gosh, so I just need to be ultra conservative in every possible way. Wow, that's just a mouthful of if, and if, then if. The government cannot default on our debt given the current financial situation with the U.S. government. So don't be alarmed, but if you do start taking actions, you can cause the situation to occur that you fear. if you fear the banking system going under, so you start taking all your money out of the bank, you will cause the banking system to go under. So we got to be careful about what we hear in the media and taking actions based upon our emotions, fear and greed. And this is one of those situations. So don't be swayed. The country's not on the edge of collapse. This happens every time we get anywhere near the debt ceiling. And we've had plenty of time where we've gone months. And go figure, the government says, well, we're going to have to take some cash management strategies in order to, not default on the debt. Again, these are all just, they're trying to scare you into letting them have a blank check to borrow more money and never actually try to do things like you and I have to do, which is spend less than we bring in. No, novel concept, right? So if anybody has any questions about this, it's not overly complicated when you think about it in the terms that I've just laid out, but don't be swayed by what the media says. But if you find yourself questioning anything that I've said, or you have any questions about how the media is portraying it, give me a call, send me a message, reach out in any possible way. I respond to messages pretty quickly. This is normally where I'd say that was your update, but I did say I had a couple of items that I wanted to sort of throw in today. One is that this weekend, my wife Pam and I celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. Hard to believe she put up with me for 30 years, but it's been an amazing 30 years, honey. I love you so much, and thank you for sticking with me. And just a few days before that, we celebrated the wedding of one of our daughters, Paige, to her husband, our now son-in-law, Nick. It was a beautiful ceremony in Southern California. We just enjoyed it so much, and we're so happy for her and so proud of all she's accomplished. So that was my two personal items. I'm going to share just a quick picture here just because, I'm a proud dad and a proud husband. So that was your update. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give us a like, give us a share, and I'll be back again soon with another Uncommon Sense update. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to be the first to hear of more Uncommon Sense updates like these, please click the subscribe button below. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks again.